Well, this is Baruch Fleischman. As you know, we're at the Tikkun Elevator Kollel, and we're going to look at something a little bit different. This is also contained in the concepts of the Rashash. A lot of this comes from a special yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael. A lot of the great Talmidei Chachomim and the Mekubalim learned by Ateret Mordechai. So this is a special sefer. I have 2 copies because I know that they go out of print, and that's why I talk a lot about buying these books, because if there's a very limited audience at this time, so anyone who is listening to this year and you have a few dollars, you might want to try to look at the bookstores that are going to be on my website and see if you could track down some of these books, because a lot of them are hard to find. This book is called the Eitz Chaim L'Mutzoehem, and it's really a book that is a pictorial book, goes into some of the deepest secrets of the Kabbalah. And this is goes on the Eitz Chaim, and it's from one of the Talmidim of the Rav Gaon Mordechai Yeshiva. This yeshiva is very famous, and they come out with different kinds of drawings. Now I'm going to bring this down lower, so hopefully we'll be able to see it well. And this will be the second or third year I have to really look and see. In really preliminary ideas to the Rashash. Now I'm taking the Rashash in a certain way that I really want to be able to look at the combinations of letters that he puts together. Now over here is really, let's see what he says at the top. He says, the Seder Kavanas Kasiva Shem Havaya. This is by a sofer. If the sofer wanted to have the proper kavanah, this is the kavanah that he should have. Now we're going to go over this, and we'll just go over it quickly, because as you see down below, you see all the numbers here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are in different places. It goes 7, 8, and 9. That actually has a deeper little shtickle Torah that it wants to tell us. So we'll try to look at it. We'll see what we can. So the first thing that we see in this Seder is that the Yud goes with Chochmah, the Hey, first Hey goes with Bina, the Vav Kitzvah, as he calls it, the Vok, or the letter Vav goes with the Vok, or let's say the Vok, goes with the letter Vav, and Malchus goes with the final letter Hey. Now, I know I've seen this before in other books, but there's nothing really quite like this one, because this one's accurate. And in the Rashash, and looking at things which are a little bit deeper, you also find that, copying from one place and not one place to another, there's lots of mistakes. So, well, not overwhelming amount of mistakes, but there are errors. So let's look at Chochmah. Chochmah, he says, is represented by the letter Yud. So he says the first thing that we have to look at is the tip that is on the letter Yud, because he says this actually represents the concept of Kesser. Now my thinking, and what I'm working with, is the idea that if you look behind this letter, or another way to say it, underneath this letter, or somewhere in the background in this letter, is a tremendous or that goes through this letter. At the very beginning of the formation of letters, that we see is the or, and then the or passes through these 4 letters. So what is generated from them? Well, from the Yud is the concept of Chochmah, he says. We know from other places that Chochmah is the right side. So let's look at number 1, and number 1 is that tip. And number 2, he says, is the or, well, he calls it or yasher, which is also a characteristic of the right side, is a light that goes from the top to the bottom. So here he says this is also the place where is generated the right line, which is called Chachmah, Chesed, and Netzach. That's generated there. Then you see that the lower part of the Yud is generated towards wait a minute, let me see that. He says that this tip, I'm learning along with you, so please excuse me. He says that this tip, I think it's this one, goes along with the concept moving towards the left of filling up the left line of bringing Chochmah into Bina, because this is Bina, Gevura, and Hod, which is the left line. Okay, and then it's going to Bina, and then it's going to continue on. Now, let's look at the rest of the Yud, because this is a little different than what we see in other places. That is, in the rest of the letters, because the Yud is divided up also into a milui, which is spelled out, Yud Vav Dalet. So he says the other two letters represent what is called Or Choser. That is a light that goes from the bottom to the top. All lights, or these lights, have two different formations. One is flows. One is male, which goes from the Or Yosher, goes from the top to the bottom. One is female, which is going from the bottom to the top. They go independently. Vav goes to Zer Anpin, and the Dalet goes to the Nuk of Zer Anpin, and then it proceeds down and it goes into Bina, which is called Ima Eloyin here. Now, Ima Eloyin is actually the upper Bina. There is more than one Bina. There is a Bina. There is Bina, which is composed of Abba and Ima, or Chochma and Bina, and that's a level by itself. Then there's another level below that, which is called Yisrael Saba Tavuna. Yisrael Saba, that's Yasas and Tavuna. So all of these are, they make a yichud over here in this letter Hey, as a result of the fact that this chachma through the baga goes into the letter Hey. And you see that on the right side, what comes from Yasas? It goes down the right side going into Zer Anpin. And what happens to the Tavuna? Well, the Tavuna here, he says, goes down in this particular part of the Hey, is represented by the Gevura and Hod. So let's go over here to to the next one, to the letter Vav. Letter Vav, he says, is at the top of the letter Vav is the Kachav of Zer Anpin. He says, and as you go down, Kolel Gimel Mochin, because we know that the Kachav, that is the head of Zer Anpin, has Ketzer Chachma Bina in it, or it has Chabad in it, which is really the three Mochin. And here, then it breaks down, but then the leg of it goes into the Vok. That's the Vok of the Vok. So let's say like this: the Vok itself has a head, and the head has Chochma Bina Dasid. Then it flows down on the right line to Chesed Gevur and Tiferes, and then it goes to Netzach Hod Yesod. That's the Vok, Chagat 9. And this is called also by the name of the stage called Yonika, which is like the stage of a nursing child. Ooh. See if I could be here. I don't know if I was able to be heard there. So then you have here at the very bottom is the Ateret Yesod, which will be built up and broken off into an independent entity called Malchus. So Malchus here is also known as Ben. So this is called, Vok is called Ma. That is, Ma is 45 and Ben is a gematria 52. And there he shows it to us, just like he shows us also the Ma here. And it's also called the Das Elyon. It pours into this. So then let's go over here and let's look at the final Malchus. On the right side of Malchus is her relationship with Zer Anpin. So it says from the Das of Zer Anpin, Hamashpia b'das denuk, and then it flows from the Zer Anpin. All of this flowing goes into the Nukva. And you have then from the Nukva an Iskashrus, she is tied together there, Im Hanuk, that is the Kashrus of Zer Anpin, that Zer Anpin here, and into the Das of the Nuk, and they're tied together. And then you see the Yesod of Zer Anpin, which is Yesod of Zer Anpin, is right here. Hamashpia Behei, that is, it pours into the Hay, and that is the Nuk. And that is an explanation that you have. There's more to it, obviously. But this is Baruch Fleischman at the Tikkun Elevator Kolo, and this is a shir in the Rashash.